The White Sox made a move to shore up the bullpen and it didn't work. Is there anything that can be done to fix this mess in the pen? Let's discuss next. Lockdown White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the FanSided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the Sox once again had a 5-2 lead heading into the seventh inning against the Minnesota Twins. And for the third straight game, the bullpen failed to protect the lead as the White Sox lost to the Twinkies 8-6 in extra innings. Before the game, the Sox demoted Steven Wilson to AAA. They recalled Jordan Leisure. You might remember the rookie had a strong couple of weeks to start the season, but trailed off and was eventually demoted. I wasn't a fan of the move, but he didn't really reward a lot of the people that weren't a fan of the move's faith, as he picked up where he left off as he continued to surrender runs, as he allowed 4 runs in the seventh. So in the first segment, I'll discuss if anything can really be done to shore up this bullpen. Then I'll discuss how last night was a wasted opportunity to pick up a rare win against the Twins. Try saying that fast 3 times. Rare win, again, you just stumble over it. And finally, I got some guests from the Future Sox crew on the rest of the week to get you ready for this Sunday's MLB draft. So I'll do a Throwback Tuesday segment as I have to bump Wayback Wednesday yet again. So let's talk about the last time the White Sox had a legit long-term solution at second base when Ray Durham played the position. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sport stops sportsing like I want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And again, if I sound very nasally or if I look like heck, it's because I'm still battling a cold. Playing hurt for you guys. You know, I play through it just like Andrew Benintendi plays through his Achilles problems. Hopefully, I'm just not as bad as Andrew Benintendi. My goal is to try not to suck. And I try to impart that wisdom of life to everybody out there. If you just aim not to suck, you'll at least do all right in life. And honestly, it's not looking good for the moves that Chris Getz made to shore up the bullpen. And it's a concern that I have when it comes to Chris Getz. Now, there's a lot of concerns I have when it comes to Chris Getz, but putting together a bullpen is one of them. Because like last year, the Sox found some diamonds in the rough in Gregory Santos and Kenyon Middleton. But this year's attempts to find some surprises have gone nowhere. Davy Garcia, he's already been designated for assignment and is back in Charlotte, for example. And sure, Jared Shuster, he's had his moments, although he gave up the winning runs last night. Justin Anderson has actually been solid up until recently. Veteran John Brebbia, he's pitched much better since being awful in May. And the old saying goes that relievers are like volatile stocks. You want to buy low, sell high, but sometimes you got to ride those waves, the highs and the lows to get to the highest point. But the Sox are at the point where they're just riding the waves, and it is mostly crashing in the organization's figurative face. Michael Kopech, for example, who I discussed yesterday, he's blown 5 saves, and he's lost 5 more games when it's usually tied. Although he actually threw a shutout inning in the 9th when the game was tied. I'll discuss that in the next segment. But the pen shares a huge amount of responsibility. Well, I wouldn't say huge, a decent amount of responsibility for the club's 26-67 record, because one of the reasons is blown leads. According to Jim Margulis of SoxMachine.com. Last night was the 32nd blown lead of the season and the 15th time when leading after 6 innings. And since the Sox starters rarely go into the 6th, that is 15 potential victories that have gone into the loss column. 41 wins looks a lot better than 26. Heck, even 10 more. 10 more would be a lot better than 26. The Sox have the second worst bullpen ERA in the big leagues at 4.40. Only the Angels have a worse bullpen. And it's not like there's a ton that can be done internally. AAA Charlotte, first of all, it's hard to pitch in with how that park is set up. But here are the options that the Sox could go with at AAA Charlotte. You could try Nick Nastorini there, but his command is iffy at best. Johan Dominguez would be another stretched out arm you can try in the pen, but he has 34 walks on the season. Tuki Toussaint, pass. I mean, I love the name, but pass. Prelander Baroa, he's pitched one clean inning in the bigs. Aaron McGarity, he's been solid in Charlotte, according to his numbers, with a 3.08 ERA and a 1.11 whip, but you'll have to make a move to get him on the 40-man roster. Sammy Peralta, still on the 40-man roster. That should basically be, his nameplate right now, his motto, still on the 40-man. And you don't want to mess with the starting rotation the Sox have at AA Birmingham. Well, at least right now, you don't want to have any of those starters come up. There's still questions if some of those guys like Mason Adams and Jairo Iriarte can even be starters. So it'd be kind of hard to plug them in as bullpen arms in high leverage situations. And plus, once Eric Fetty and Chris Flexen are traded and possibly Garrett Crochet, you might need some of those arms at AA to cover starts. And if Crochet stays, his innings will be limited in the second half, but I still think it's better to keep him as a starter. Maybe have him pitch 4 or 5 innings, then move him to the pen just for the sake of having a better arm there. You got Mike Clevenger coming back from a rehab assignment, but I don't see him being an outstanding bullpen arm. So really, GM Chris Getz needs to look at the scrap heap. And that's actually my only real frustration, especially in this lost season. He should be churning over a lot of that bullpen if they're just failing. Now, I know you should be patient with some of these guys, but again, it's a lost season. Let's take a look at some of the guys on the scrap heap to see maybe if they can help the next future good team. Bullpen arms is the one place where one man's trash is another man's treasure. So it'd be nice to see if maybe someone on the outside can be brought in and fixed. But then again, we don't know. You and I do not know if the Sox have a modern day pitch lab to fix guys like other franchises do. That's why putting together a cost-effective and production-effective bullpen is something I have at the top of my list of concerns regarding Chris Getz. Well, the Sox lost to the Twins for the 8th straight time this season, and 9th if you go back to last season. I'll discuss last night's loss and why it was a wasted opportunity to snap that skid next on Locked On White Sox. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. FanDuel is really good for props, such as if you think Luis Robert Jr. is going to go yard tonight, that's plus 320. Andrew Vaughn is at plus 460, and Paul DeJong, who leads the Sox and Dingers, is at plus 500 to hit a home run tonight. Byron Buxton always crushes the Sox, so maybe you might want to play him for the plus 300 on him having a multi-hit game. I don't know. Might be a good idea. You can play so much more and also put together some fun parlays. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox take on the Minnesota Twins in the second game of a 3-game set. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just always ask, make me your first listen in part of your rotation. And I do think you should have a rotation. One of my guys on X, formerly Twitter, reached out to me, RJ, I believe it was, saying, "Hey, I didn't know you were the host, but putting me on the rotation, especially getting ready for the draft." And that's what I would suggest. This is a very important draft, and I'm going to have a ton of draft coverage for you guys the next 3 days. So, when Martin Maldonado hits a home run and Nicky Lopez goes 2 for 3 with a walk, a run scored, and 2 RBIs, you better darn win. And Chris Flexen, he's only going to be around for so long, so you should not be wasting his 6 innings of solid work, where he just gave up 2 runs, a mistake to Trevor Larnach in the first inning that went over the fence, and for some crazy reason, he decided to throw a fastball to Byron Buxton. I don't know why you would want to throw a fastball to Byron Buxton, but he did. Otherwise, he did what he always does, and that is getting out of trouble with minimal damage. Gave up 7 hits, walked 1, struck out 4. And excuse me one moment. As I said, I'm still battling this cough and this cold. It's a worthy foe. Anyways, Eric Fetty and Garrett Crochet, they're getting all the headlines for the Sox in the trade market. But Chris Flexen, he should also fetch the Sox something in the market, especially if he is packaged with, say, Fetty, or maybe packaged with another veteran asset the Sox have. I mean, think about it. He's making $1.75 million. He was basically just a risk that the Sox took to see, could he come back to the pitcher that he was with the Mariners. Posted a 4.32 ERA in June. He really only had 1 bad outing that month. He's been strong in his last 4 starts. Is he going to start a playoff game? Probably not. But could he provide some help to a contender starting rotation that has been beat up, like, say, the Brewers or the Orioles? Sure. And in return, could the Sox expect at least to get a lottery scratch-off type prospect, or even a prospect whose ceiling is being a reliever? I think they could. Excuse me one moment. Especially since earlier this season, he showed he can be effective in long relief. Although, again, I think the return for Flexen is better if he gets attached with another veteran asset. I'd package him like how the Sox packaged Joe Kelly with Lance Lynn last year. Maybe you're going to probably get a better return. You might get that extra prospect with some upside in a potential trade with, say, the Dodgers, the Orioles, the Brewers, the Phillies. Maybe you package him with Luis Robert Jr. if you trade him. But I'm just saying, when you get a solid start from Chris Flexen and Martin Maldonado goes yard and Nicky Lopez is out there hitting, smacking the ball all over the field, you should better darn win. And Michael Kopech was back out there in a high leverage situation and didn't give up the lead. I mean, I'd still get rid of him like I discussed yesterday, but hey, nice sneaky move by Pedro Grifol. And when you could say a nice sneaky move by Pedro Grifol, again, you better win. And they didn't. I mean, the Sox actually got something productive out of Maldonado. who's now hitting 108. Progress. And Nicky Lopez, he's been solid this season. Not great, but not bad either. Had an outstanding performance. Another good start on the mound by a starter, and Kopech not blowing it. And the Sox still found a way to lose. Even more importantly, they just keep finding ways to be the inferior team. Bad teams lose. Inferior teams find ways to lose. And that is why the Sox just keep continuing to be little brother to the Twins. Because the Sox have actually had some leads on the Twins. And the Twins just keep coming back because the Sox find ways to lose. Well, the draft is on Sunday, and I think it's very important. It's a very, very important draft. So I got the guys from Future Sox to join the next couple of shows to prepare you for it. Tomorrow, I got Ian Eskridge to talk about the state of the farm system. James Fox, the managing editor of Future Sox, he'll then preview the draft on Thursday. And Elijah Evans will be on to discuss Friday how the Sox can improve the farm system after the draft with the trades of their veterans. So that means I got to bump Wayback Wednesday again. So how about let's do Throwback Tuesday? And some of you are hoping the Sox get a long-term answer in the draft at second base. I figure why not go back to when the Sox had that long-term answer in Ray Durham. Next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. PrizePicks has some good more or less to pick from today on the White Sox. Once again, they basically have it as, is Luis Robert Jr. going to hit a home run or not tonight? As it is at 0.5 to decide on the more or less there. Corey Lee getting on base is at 0.5. Eric Fetty's strikeouts is more or less at 5. Trevor Larnach, he hits the Sox well. More or less on hits plus runs plus RBIs is 1.5. So download the PrizePicks apps today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And here on Locked On White Sox, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's going to be year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. One of my first jobs I ever worked, I worked at a bank in the collections department, and even I knew the IRS was not something to be messed around with. A bank, for example, can threaten foreclosure if you get behind on your bills, but there are a lot of hoops that they sometimes have to jump through. Not the IRS, because they are usually the first in line to get their money. So when they say they will do something, they can do it. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. And be sure to mention Locked On White Sox at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. And the White Sox take on the Minnesota Twins in the second game of a 3-game set. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Well, welcome back into Locked On White Sox. Thank you for sticking with me. Shout out to all my everydayers. And again, playing hurt. Been battling a really rough cold. And yesterday, turned into some insane ear pressure. But I'm chugging down Mucinex getting some eardrops. You're probably thinking you might want to go see a doctor, Todd. And if it keeps getting worse, I'm probably going to have to go to urgent care. But otherwise, chicken soup, doing it all. If you got some good home remedies, put those in the comments on the YouTube page. So I'm getting tired of this. I think I've had it since Friday. Well, there might not be a more underrated player in White Sox history than Ray Durham. Don't agree with me? Well, then how come the White Sox are still trying to replace him? And he was traded in 2002. That's right. It's been 22 years. And the Sox are still trying to find a second baseman capable of playing the position for more than 5 seasons. Gordon Beckham came close, as he was the official starting second baseman, according to Baseball Reference, from the 2010 season to the 2014 season. But you and I know how he fell short of expectations. Otherwise, the Sox have tried Yolmer Sanchez, Larry Garcia, Brett Lowry, Tyler Saladino, Yohan Moncada, Nick Madrigal, Cesar Hernandez, Josh Harrison, Elvis Andrus. They even brought Roberto Alomar in at some point during the 2000s. Tadahito Oguchi, hey, he had 3 good seasons at second, won a World Series in 2005, and was a vital part of that lineup for the 2005 champions, but he was 30, so he wasn't going to be the long-term answer. I mean, heck, even Chris Getz got a shot to see if he could be the solution at second base. But no one's been good enough to fill Ray's shoes. Now, did Ray have his moments where he acted like he did not want to be on the Southside? Yes. No. But otherwise, was he good at the plate? You darn right. He had a career 21.4 B WAR with the Sox during his 8 seasons. Well, 7.5. He was here from 95 to the trade deadline at 2002. And during that time, he had a 278, 352, 428 slash line. Obviously, he was not exactly a power hitter, although eventually, I believe he crushed some home runs when he went to the Giants. But on the South Side, his career high was 20 in 2001. But he could steal bases. He had 219 career stolen bases for the Sox when stealing was still sort of a thing. In fact, read one of the chapters in Moneyball is how the A's hated to steal bases, and when they acquired Ray Durham, they basically had to tell him, don't steal bases. And he was like, what? It's one of the things I did at the White Sox. He did make 2 All-Star teams while in the Sox. The only 2 he actually made in his career. Made them in 98 and the 2000 season. Now, he wasn't the strongest fielder. But think about it. The Sox won the AL Central in 2000 with Jose Valentin and Ray Durham playing up the middle. Not exactly the greatest defenders, but they could hit. In fact, that was basically the 2000 season, was they could smash the ball. They had they had some good pitching, but it just fell apart in terms of injuries. James Baldwin, his arm just basically fell off. Cal Eldred, I remember they had to basically screw it together because he was having a renaissance season, but then he fell off at the end. Jim Parquet was never the same after the playoff start. Michael Soroka was never heard from again after he was traded for David Wells, and there was that whole controversy there. But and then they just ran into the Seattle Mariners, who was able to basically neutralize the Sox offense in 2000. Did most of his work in the lineup hitting leadoff. I mean, he was an excellent leadoff hitter. But the Sox have not had a player like him since he was traded to the A's in 2002. I mean, they've been basically using the figurative equivalent of chewing gum and duct tape ever since. Now, maybe Jacob Gonzalez, last year's #1 pick, can finally be the solution at second base. Or Brooks Baldwin, an underrated prospect. Or maybe that solution is finally in this year's draft, because maybe if the Sox started to draft up the middle consistently, you might finally get that solution. Because the 2 eternal problems for the White Sox in their lineup has been second base and right field. And one way you can solve it is drafting strong up the middle. Because if you draft a shortstop, it doesn't work out at shortstop, maybe you move him to second. You draft a center fielder, Maybe he doesn't have the range for the major league center field, but the fielding ability to play right field. I don't know. Maybe try that because the Sox are still trying to replace Jermaine Dye. And as I just talked about it, Ray Durham left town in 2002. It's been 22 years, and the Sox still have not replaced him. Well, anyways, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow with Ian Eskridge of Future Sox. He co-hosts their minor league podcast with a friend of the show, James Fox. Ian also puts together those amazing highlights you see on X, formerly Twitter, under the at Future Sox Twitter handle. So him and I are going to take an inventory of the farm system ahead of a very important MLB draft for the Chicago White Sox. And hey, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Turn on those notifications or follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding the Sox bullpen issues. Can it be fixed at all this year? Wasting an opportunity to beat the Twins, and Throwback Tuesday appreciation for Ray Durham. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.